Allen Lund Company has new offices in Ogden, Utah and Indianapolis, Indiana. Check allenlund.com to reach them.
OOIDA, representing America's truckers since 1973, presents Landline Now with your host, Mark Reddick.
The national headlines on Hurricanes Helene and Milton have gone quiet, but the needs among affected communities remain. The American Logistics Aid Network is among the many groups helping with relief and recovery efforts on the ground. We'll hear from Kathy Fulton, Allen's executive director. The fact is, there are ways that truckers can protect themselves against predatory towing, and the insurance options you choose could play a big role. I'll talk with Trina Skywalker and Trista Roby of OOIDA's Truck Insurance Department. And finally, seasonality in the market is returning and rates are heading in a positive direction. We'll get the full rundown from Brent Hutto of Truckstop in today's Market Update. But first, the news with Scott Thompson.
Thanks, Mark. Our top story today. The Truck Leasing Task Force got together for another meeting on Wednesday, and some conclusions are coming into focus as the group nears its end of mission. For one, the members of the task force have determined that the current lease purchase agreement system is set up to harm drivers. Task Force member Caitlin Long, chief economist for the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, went on to explain during Wednesday's meeting the other problems they've found with the current model.
There's a financial economic incentive for trucking companies to continue this practice. So this means that we need to be giving drivers more power and also doing something to disincentivize this because it is an economic advantage. Also, this because drivers are critical to the nation's supply chain, this race to the bottom for, paying drivers for driver compensation, it harms the entire American infrastructure for, giving truck drivers what they need and giving them, good jobs so that it's a career for someone and attracts the number of drivers that we need going forward.
Long went on to say that right now the only avenue truck drivers can take to air their grievances is through litigation. A task force subcommittee report says more than 200,000 truck drivers have been affected by predatory truck lease purchase programs, and that's a conservative estimate. The report says hundreds of thousands of more drivers are likely affected but lack the resources to hold the carrier accountable for its bad practices. The subcommittee also called for more education on the dangers of lease purchase agreements as well.
Drivers again, could be educated more on the pros and cons of entering into a lease purchase agreement. That's something that task force has deliberated on in the past. Also, protections for drivers to unionize or, to collectively pursue better working conditions, better lease purchase, better agreements with their companies. That would certainly be something that would help tip the scales more towards the driver instead of where they're heavily weighed right now towards the carrier.
The Truck Leasing Task Force, established by Congress with the goal of ending predatory lease purchase agreements in the trucking industry, started in 2023. Since that time, numerous stories of truck drivers getting into bad deals with motor carriers have been relayed. The task force has one more meeting on the docket on November 20th. For the fourth time in 5 weeks, the national average for a gallon of diesel went up last week. The Energy Information Administration reports that the average ticked up 2 cents to $3.57 a gallon. Prices were up in 6 of the 10 regions EIA tracks and down in 4. This week's prices, according to ProMiles.com, are going the other way, so far at least. Wednesday morning's average was $3.52 a gallon, down nearly 2 cents from the same day last week. Prices dipping in 7 regions and rising in 3. A massive recall issued by Bendix has prompted a large vehicle recall by Volvo Trucks North America. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration says Volvo Trucks is recalling nearly 127,000 model year 2020 through 2025 VN, VAH, VHD, and VNRE trucks that are equipped with Bendix EC80 advanced ECUs. Electrical noise and low signal to the power line carrier may cause the ECU to incorrectly process commands or stop working. Certain safety systems that depend on the Bendix ECU may also perform poorly or completely lose functionality, increasing the risk of a crash. Fixes are free of charge. Notification letters go out in December. The Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association is asking federal regulators for more oversight of autonomous vehicles. In September, the Department of Commerce's Bureau of Industry and Security issued a notice of proposed rulemaking seeking to prohibit transactions involving connected vehicle technology by China or other foreign adversaries. The proposal is aimed at addressing undue or unacceptable risk to national security in regard to communication technology. In formal comments to the proposal, OOIDA expressed support. The association said it could reduce unacceptable risk to national security and professional drivers. As part of its comments, OOIDA also requested clarification on whether electronic logging devices are considered covered software. Recent research from Colorado State University showed that ELDs are vulnerable to cyber attacks after researchers hacked a truck's ELD and gained access to its accelerator. The Biden administration has announced $3 billion in funding to help reduce emissions at U.S. ports. It's called the Clean Ports Program. The Environmental Protection Agency said the goal is to reduce more than 3 million metric tons of carbon pollution associated with port activity over a 10-year period, mostly through the installation of zero-emission infrastructure, plus an estimated 1,000 drayage trucks and more. The former owner of a Utah trucking company has been sentenced for his involvement in a bribery scheme. Federal authorities say Alexander Barsukov, former owner of Salt Lake Trucking Group, recently pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit wire fraud. Several people were involved in the scheme, which centered around bribing a line haul manager for FedEx Ground. In return for the bribes, they got preferential treatment on new truck routes, falsified mileage reports so that FedEx Ground overpaid the defendant's companies, and got payments for ghost routes they never completed. As a result, prosecutors say the defendant's companies received more than $21 million from FedEx Ground while paying their inside man approximately $165,000 in bribes. Barsukov is just the latest to be sentenced. He was ordered to pay more than $8 million in restitution and forfeiture and serve 3 years of probation and 6 months of home detention. The owner of a New Jersey-based trucking company is facing some serious federal charges. The U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York says Arson Lusher orchestrated a scheme to defraud more than 20 investors out of more than $5 million over a 4-year period. Prosecutors say Lusher got people to invest in his company, promising big returns along the way by telling them he had a hugely profitable trucking business. That wasn't true, prosecutors allege, and Lusher used the funds to run a classic Ponzi scheme. He was arrested last week and has since been charged with wire fraud and aggravated identity theft. A new commercial port of entry in Arizona just passed another hurdle. The General Services Administration announcing a $274 million design-build contract for the new Douglas Land Port of Entry. It'll be about 5 miles west of the existing Raul Hector Castro Land Port of Entry, where both inbound and outbound trucks currently maneuver within the same undersized commercial vehicle inspection compound, which slows traffic and presents safety hazards. Once a new port of entry is complete, the U.S. Customs and Border Protection will relocate commercial operations from the existing Castro port to the new one. The change will increase the number of commercial vehicle inspection lanes from 1 to 4 and triple the number of commercial vehicle inspection docks to 36. Construction is set to begin next fall. Completion is scheduled for late 2028. And finally, the California Air Resources Board will be hosting a seminar next week to discuss various trucking-related regulations. Topics to be discussed include Clean Truck Check, Advanced Clean Fleets, Transport Refrigeration Unit Compliance, and more. CARB officials will be on hand to answer questions. The seminar runs from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Pacific Time on November 7th at the Body Shop Plus in Santa Maria. That's Laneline Now News for today. I'm Scott Thompson.
Thanks, Scott. Congratulations to Jay Hosty of Diamond Head, Mississippi. He's received the OOIDA Safe Driving Award for 41 years of safe, accident-free driving. That's the equivalent of a car driver going 308 years without causing a single accident. Next, Scott Thompson discusses hurricane relief with Kathy Fulton of the American Logistics Aid Network. I'll talk predatory towing with Trina Skywalker and Trista Roby of OOIDA's Truck Insurance Department, and Ashley Blackford talks with Brent Hutto of Truckstop. We'll be back in a moment. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
Control your toll costs and eliminate tolling headaches with Prepass Tolls. Prepass Tolls means toll volume discounts. Just one invoice for all tolls and fewer violations. Call 877-878-5970 or go to prepass.com.
Are you tired of the IRS following you around like a dark cloud? Call 888-557-4020 and get your life back.
At Truckstop, we've built a better load board for carriers like you. Sign up today and access over 600,000 loads on the most trusted online load board. Learn why the best in the business rely on Truckstop to make more money and start driving your profit today.
It's tested and proven. Burn 2.1% less fuel when you balance all wheel ends with Centromatic. Call 800-523-8473 to get the OOIDA discount.
When Hurricane Helene hit and then Hurricane Milton less than 2 weeks later, the national headlines were hard to miss. And while the coverage is fewer and farther in between now, a great deal of help is still needed within the communities that were devastated. The American Logistics Aid Network, or ALAN, is among the many groups on the ground providing help right now. We spoke with Kathy Fulton, the executive director of ALAN, shortly after Helene hit, but we wanted to check back in to see how things were going now.
Yeah, so, we're just over a month after Helene made landfall and really devastated the southern Appalachians. Eastern Tennessee, western North Carolina just took the brunt of this. And there are businesses that are still just completely disrupted by this. And it's not surprising, right? We saw just immense destruction of roadways and rail and other types of logistics infrastructure. But, as much as there's all of that bad news out there, there's also a lot of really great news that we see with logistics companies who are stepping up to help, who are either doing things through ALAN, donating their resources, donating their time and their expertise, or others who are, who don't know us yet, who are finding ways to support their communities. It's going to be a long time for recovery, though, Scott. I talked about the infrastructure disruption and destruction. This is one of those Katrina-like events where it's just going to be years before these communities get back to some semblance of normalcy.
Yeah, and we spoke right after Helene hit, and, there were a lot of questions about a lot of things, and we've seen the destruction since then, and it's clear that a lot of these communities are going to be dealing with the aftermath for quite a while. You mentioned the ground game there that ALAN has and how you're helping. Can you talk specifically, we've talked about this before, but just kind of looking back over the past several weeks, what kinds of things specifically has ALAN been doing to help those recovery efforts? And maybe specifically, truck drivers, how are they helping out specifically, and what kinds of things are they doing?
Yeah, so in the immediate aftermath of both Helene and Milton, we were working with trucking and logistics partners just to move the immediate priority needs in, things like water and hydration, basic emergency human needs. As the days went on, we started moving things, working with transportation partners to move things like solar equipment and communications equipment, those types of things. Now we're even moving further into recovery, where we're moving things like material handling equipment. And we actually did a good bit of that at the beginning as well, because just the surge in donations and the surge in demand. But we're really starting to see groups who are going to be there for the long haul, rather than just the pop-up groups. We're seeing people who are going to be there for a long time to come, who are just trying to figure out how to establish their operations. And that takes things like material handling equipment. It takes things like warehouse supplies and things like that. Things that all of us in the trucking and logistics industry kind of take for granted as just part of our daily operations, pallets and boxes and gaylords and all of those things that we're used to seeing and moving and dealing with. A lot of these organizations are just trying to get their hands around how they're going to utilize those things and learning how to utilize those things.
How big a challenge is that? Because as I kind of alluded to off the top, obviously a lot of coverage of what happened there in the aftermath of Helene and Milton. We have such short attention spans as a society now that, they've kind of left the headlines. And with it, I think probably some awareness about the challenges that are on the ground there. How big a challenge is that for an organization like yours? Obviously, the initial influx of donations and, offers of help are incredibly helpful. But I imagine as time goes on, it gets a little more challenging to kind of meet that demand just because people aren't as aware of it or aren't thinking about it as much, right?
That's exactly right. You mentioned at the top, it's out of the headline for the most part. There's, still unfortunately some negative press happening for various reasons.
Yeah.
But, even still, with things moving out of the press, I'm still surprised by companies who couldn't figure out a way to get involved or weren't able to get involved early on who are reaching out. We actually had a trucking company reach out to us this week and say, hey, we can't do a lot, but here's what we can do. Can you put us to work? And absolutely, we were able to, find a couple of loads that needed to be donated. They were more than happy to do it. And there's things like construction materials, those kind of long-term things are what we're seeing. So we know flatbed is a tough market anyway, and it's tough to find those assets. But people who want to, who have a little bit of space right now, who have a little bit of capacity right now, reach out to us because we can put you to work almost immediately.
And I think,
and that's I'm going to caveat that.
Sure.
It puts you to work by, if you can donate, because there's not a lot. Our organization does not have funding to pay for those transportation services.
And when you say donate, you're not necessarily, I mean, you're obviously going to take donations if you can, but you're also talking about a donation of time and resources, right?
Yeah. Donating logistics services, donating expertise. We're seeing, I mentioned the nonprofits who are just trying to get their feet under them. Maybe they've never done logistics before, and now they figure out, oh my gosh, this is something we're going to have to do for our community for a long time. And we're going to be putting skilled volunteers into some of those places just to help advise them, just to say, this is, you have this space that you've turned into a warehouse. Let's figure out how to organize it. Let's talk about what is the difference between truckload and less than truckload, and what does it mean when you're shipping parcel, and what's the best way for you to get the resources into your facility and get them back out so that they can help people rapidly.
You've got a pretty comprehensive explanation and a pretty comprehensive sort of framework for how people can help out on your website, alanaid.org. But can you give us like an example, for someone listening and they're thinking, this sounds interesting. I'd kind of like to do this. What's an example of something that they would do? Maybe you could use a real world experience of something that's happened, or maybe a hypothetical. But what exactly does that look like?
Yeah, I can give you a real world example of something that we're trying to figure out how to make happen right now. And again, it's one of those difficult, challenges that there's someone who has donated lumber in Mississippi, and it needs to get to Eastern Tennessee, right? And so we're just trying to find someone. It's like 3 truckloads of lumber, 2x4s and things like that are big and bulky. If someone is able to help with that, they can reach out to us. We do all of the kind of collection of information so that it makes it easier for someone who wants to donate, and we make that connection for them so that they can make that happen. We do that over and over again with whether it's not just trucking activities, material handling equipment and warehousing. These nonprofits will reach out to us and say, here is a specific logistics need we have. We don't know who to go to for this. And Alan, just because we're supported by the industry, we've been around for almost 2 decades now, we can help them find who the right party is who can do that. Occasionally there's money to spend. Our organization doesn't have that type of money, but sometimes nonprofits come to us and say, hey, we have a little bit of money to spend. We just don't know where to go, and we can help them make those connections as well. And
I should stress that Helene and Milton are not the only 2 disasters that you're responding to. This is a nationwide thing. Any area that's in need of help, whether it be wildfires or tornadoes or what have you,
yes.
You're there to facilitate the recovery there. Are there other areas right now that are kind of, turning up as hotspots for you?
Yeah, thank you for saying wildfires and tornadoes. I mean, there were tornadoes across the Mid-South a I don't even remember now, April, May of this year.
That sounds right, yeah.
Right, and, kind of big events that have all been forgotten about because the attention goes to whatever the latest disasters. There are people who still need to rebuild their homes from that. To be real about it, we're still working with disasters from multiple years ago. I live in Central Florida. Hurricane Milton hit some of the same locations that Hurricane Ian hit in 2022. And so, those people have had a double whammy. Maybe they got partway through rebuilding and now they have to go at it again. So we're not here just for, just till the news leaves. This is what the industry, the profession has said, hey, we need an organization to be our nonprofit disaster relief arm year round. And so that sometimes that means working with communities for a long time. And we're committed to that.
And I think the easiest way to go about getting more information is the website, correct?
Yes.
ALANAID.org. Did we forget anything, Kathy? Anything else to add here?
No, just other than, Scott, honestly, a thank you to all of your listeners, because we do hear from you. We know that the trucking community is just incredibly generous. And whether you are working directly with Alan or another nonprofit or a community-based organization, just a huge thank you. Nothing happens without the trucking industry in our country, and we recognize that, and we're just so incredibly grateful for the support and just everything you do.
Our thanks once again to Kathy Fulton of Allen. Before we go, a quick word about an event that happened in late October at the American Truck Historical Society in Kansas City, Missouri. 4 more people being inducted into the American Trucking and Industry Leader Hall of Fame. The list includes Robert Young of ABF, John Ruan of Ruan Transportation, Marvin Rush of Rush Enterprises, and Frederick McKinley Jones of Thermo King, all honored for their contributions to the industry. Jeff Harpole, Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer at Ruan, was on hand for the ceremony. He said it was quite an honor.
It means a ton. Our founder started the company in 1932, sold the family car, bought a truck, and began hauling his first load on July 4th. He spent a lot of time over the course of over his lifetime before he passed, just talking about how important our customers are, how important people are within the company, and he ultimately transformed the industry, or helped transform the industry, and he also gave back, which was really important to us. He gave back in healthcare, in education, in the arts, and just an individual who was larger than life and cared deeply about the people within the company and the customers that we serve.
Rusty Rush, the CEO and president of Rush Enterprises, was also on hand to accept the honor on behalf of his late father and the company itself.
To honor my father like that means everything. He was the greatest mentor someone could have ever had. He built this thing from the ground up from the time he was working Coke machines, filling bottles up when he was 6 years old at my grandfather's bus station, till flooring used car dealers at 16, to getting in the truck business in 64, 65, just being a part owner and then continuing to grow it like that. My father, if he walked in that room, he was larger than life. He didn't have to tell you, he lit up a room when he came in. So, it was very special to watch the growth of the company, not driven by us, but driven by all the employees, and always with the same motto, the customer's the boss. As long as you always keep that in mind, and realize that not only the customers that you do business with outside, but your employees are your customers also. Providing that opportunity and that environment for them to prosper and grow is the ultimate goal, because that's what leads to success at the end of the day.
This was the 4th class of people and groups inducted into the American Trucking and Industry Leader Hall of Fame. We'll take a quick break now, but stay close. Landline Now returns right after this.
Penske owns and operates some of the best-maintained vehicles on the planet. Our used trucks come with a 5-year maintenance report and pre-sale inspection. So if you're in the market for a top-quality pre-owned truck, look no further. Search our inventory today at PenskeUsedTrucks.com.
Capital Reman, the leader in remanufactured diesel engines and components, has partnered with OOIDA to offer exclusive member benefits. Visit CapitalReman.com today to support America's transportation industry and take advantage of your benefits.
When it's time to overhaul your truck engine, help protect it by insisting on a genuine Vibertech TVD crankshaft damper. Heavy duty, absolute premium quality, and they're made right here in the USA. Find a dealer at VibertechTVD.com.
Landline Now, welcome back. Like tires, fuel, and an engine, insurance is one of those things you just have to have for your truck. But not all insurance is created equal. I'm here now with OOIDA's Trita Skywalker and Trista Roby to answer some questions. Hey, welcome to both of you.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Well, glad to have you here. It's a new experience for me.
Yeah.
You know?
You get to see how much fun we are to record with.
I like that. I am always up for fun here. What is our main topic today? Let's kind of start there.
Well, it's a topic we've done before, but it's on supplemental towing and cleanup coverage, or towing and cleanup coverage that generally goes along with your physical damage. The reason we like to do this topic ever so often is just because of the mess that we see sometimes with these claims and the tow bills and how excessive they are. So,
yeah, and that's something actually that's coming up a lot in our coverage lately is, in fact, there was congressional testimony recently that Louis Pugh of OOIDA was in on, where a member of Congress said that he was aware, I believe, of a $78,000 tow bill.
I'm not surprised, yeah.
And that's why it's such a pressing topic to discuss this individual coverage.
And why we're bringing it back on the show again.
Yes.
Well, I want to talk a little bit. I mean, obviously we have that one example, but talk a little bit, if you would, about how bad some of these bills can get.
Well, I mean, I think that example is probably in line with a lot of our really big ones. Not only are you worried about towing, there's cleanup, especially, even cargo can be involved from the scene of an accident, and those bills can often be more than the actual damage to the truck itself, more than the damage to the actual cargo itself. And so that's why they rack up so quickly.
I believe one of the examples that I heard recently was several $1,000s for a heat and humidity charge because it was hot out.
Oh, wow.
I did hear about that recently, now that you mention it, because I thought, well, that's new.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Not new in a good way. Not new in a, it's the new spring fashion. No, this is not the new spring fashion.
Right.
Well, what kind of average size tow bills are we seeing right now? Because even those are serious.
They are. I'm not sure if I could really speak on what's average. I know we see a lot in the realm of $20,000 to $30,000. When you hear about the $80,000, $100,000 bills, I feel like those are kind of on the higher end of what we see. But at the end of the day, they're always high. I mean, even $20,000 and $30,000 is an excessive bill to have to pay, especially if your coverage only includes maybe $3,000 or $5,000 coverage. You're still stuck with several $1,000s.
Right.
Well, and I assume that certain types of loads can lead to higher costs for towing as well.
Oh, sure. And depending on the cleanup, that's a big part of it too. If you have your own authority and you have your own cargo coverage, physical damage coverage, if there's a spill with the load that you're hauling, yeah, some of it does cost quite a bit. Trista's giggling because she has a good example of this.
We've just heard some of the loads that you would not expect to be expensive for the cleanup are the most outrageous ones. Cheeto dust was one of our recent ones. And think about when you're eating Cheetos and how they stick to everything. They end up on every piece of paper that you're touching. But if that is the entire load that's being carried, that was a huge cleanup bill.
Cheeto dust.
Yes.
They couldn't just lick their fingers like the rest of us do?
I had the same question.
Okay. Well, obviously that's a unique case, one hopefully we don't see every day.
Right.
But as a general matter, I mean, I don't remember years ago that $20,000 to $30,000 was a common tow bill. And obviously with these outrageous ones, there's a lot of things we could talk about that are driving that. But on these kind of more average or more common ones, what's driving the cost of those up?
The fact that there are no regulations right now, very little regulations on tow companies, and they can really just get by with doing whatever they want. I mean, I think that's the biggest driving factor.
Right. And I mean, some of it is warranted, and I don't want to talk like this is all completely unwarranted, because it is.
Or like they're all predators.
Correct. There are legitimate circumstances. If one of the high tow bills I think we saw was a load of cattle that there was an accident, and so the time and effort that it takes to clean up the result of that accident, or to clean up Cheeto dust, or, and let's not forget how risky it can be to hook up to a semi-truck and tow it. If they're on the side of the highway and the tow truck driver has to navigate traffic, and, it's a safety risk to try and move that equipment out of the way. So a lot of it is warranted and a lot of it is valid. But like you said, we haven't seen it this high in the past. It just continues to go up. It continues to be a problem. And some places are going to take advantage of the fact that there's no regulation.
Right.
Well, this is something that's typically regulated at the state level, not the federal level. Talk a little bit about this regulation. Are there places that are improving or that are good? Is it all kind of a bleak, horrifying landscape out there?
It's hard to navigate, really, because each state can do what they want. And I do think a lot of states are moving in a good direction. But there are also states that have actually almost put protections in for the tow company. I mean, I can think of one in particular that requires that towing be paid before the claim itself is paid. So, for example, if you have a $30,000 tow bill and a $40,000 truck, they require that tow company gets paid from the insurance claim first. So the $30,000 tow bill is going to get paid, and then you're left with the $10,000 for your $40,000 truck.
So this actually affects what you're paid for your own damage, for your own claim.
Correct.
Sometimes.
Depending on the state and that sort of thing. But yes, that is the part of it that's so hard to navigate, is that every state is just a little bit different. And while some of them are working in a good direction, I think there are also a lot of areas that need improvement, clearly, and states that have worked to actually protect the tow company.
I'm curious if we can kind of give people a sense here. Are there particular states that we can name that are bad, or particular regions of the country where this is a worse problem than it is elsewhere?
I mean, we can say that we generally see a lot of the higher bills in the Northeast. That seems to be, and I'm not saying they're the most predatory. I'm just saying that that's where we see a lot of the higher bills. I don't know if it's because we're talking about more highly populated areas or
less regulations,
right?
What it could be. But those are typically where we see our big ones come from.
Right.
Well, it's good at least we can nail it down that far. Something else that I think is worth mentioning here is you mentioned, of course, those states that require the tow bill to be paid first. In some cases, I know we have states where people can put liens on the equipment, that they can actually tie up your truck in this. Talk a little bit about that. I mean, how often does it happen? How does it happen? How do you get out of it?
Well, I don't know if I could answer all of that, like how you get, it's going to be a battle with the insurance company first and foremost. And hopefully whoever you have fighting on your behalf is going to, I know we've had situations where someone's looked over a tow bill and it kind of looks like maybe there's a double charge here and there for something. So hopefully your insurance company can come to some sort of an agreement with the tow lot. The problem with that, too, is the longer they tie up your truck, the longer they're holding on to it, they're probably still accruing storage fees, because you're not just talking about the cost to hook up to the equipment and tow it away. Now you've got storage fees for each day that the equipment's in the lot. That's going to continue to add up throughout all this, I would imagine. And, and if you have a loan on the equipment, I don't know that your lender's going to be any help. They're just expecting you to keep making your payments.
Right.
So I think really that comes down to your insurance company and how much they're going to be able to help you out with that situation.
Yeah, the argument that your insurance company is going to be able to put up for you. But really what it comes down to is, do you have additional coverage available?
Exactly.
I mean, that's the bottom line. Do you have additional coverage available? Have you discussed that with your agent? And if you do have it, I mean, typically depending on how much you're looking at, number one, how much is built into your policy? That's going to be an important question for your agent. But number two, is there a supplemental additional coverage available? And you're looking at usually pretty cheap premiums for that additional coverage. If you're paying $5 or $10 a month to save yourself a $20,000 or $30,000 loss.
Or more.
Yeah. I mean, to me, that's really the bottom line, is what do you have available to help protect you and protect your insurance company even more, and keep them from having to put that fight up for you so that everybody's getting paid.
Yeah, they can only fight so much if you don't have the right kind of coverage. Their hands are going to be kind of tied at a certain point. So I'm sure you could be at risk of losing your equipment, having to sign it over to the tow lot, because most people don't have $15,000 or $20,000 to shell out of pocket.
And especially if your policy wording specifically states that if there's a total loss, will only pay $3,000 toward a tow bill. I mean, that's very black and white. And so that's why these are such important questions. I say it, I think, every time, but talk to your agent.
Yeah.
Ask your agent. Have a discussion with your agent.
And that's an important point to stress. And I have heard you stress that before, that you've got to be in communication. These people are your partner in this situation.
Right. And they don't want to see, I mean, your insurance company, regardless of who it is, doesn't want to see any harm to you. I mean, they want to protect you as much as you want to protect yourself.
Right.
And that's their job.
Right.
That's their job. I'm kind of curious. We've talked a little bit about cleanup and that type of thing. What are some of the things that are not likely to be covered in terms of towing coverage, and why?
I think that's going to go back to the discussion with your agent, seeing what the policy excludes, what's covered, what's not covered. EPA is a huge factor. Kind of even going back to the Cheeto dust situation, that's not a hazardous material, but there's still a level of having to get the earth back to how it was prior to the claim. It's still an environmental issue. If you're leased onto a company, chances are that your motor carrier is going to have that coverage. So maybe they're responsible for the trailer and the cleanup of the load or the spill of the load. You're still going to be responsible for your truck. And I don't know that I've ever seen where an insurance company says, no, we're not going to have that cleaned up. Like it's going to have to be cleaned up.
Right.
Regardless of what the load is, what the contents are, or the spill.
Or whose responsibility it is.
Right.
It has to be done.
It's going to get cleaned up, and then the argument will ensue, who's paying for this? And, that's really what it comes down to is, are you responsible? Is your motor carrier responsible? Is everyone covered properly? Those are the most important factors to check out, because the load's always going to get cleaned up.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We've just got a few seconds left. Is there anything else we need to get out to people about this?
I think just emphasizing again the importance of knowing how much coverage you have, checking to see what the cost is. Typically, you need to check and see if it's something that you can add later in the policy if you're trying to bind coverage in the least cost possible. Check and see if that coverage can be added.
And if there's a time frame on when it can be added or that sort of thing.
Do you have to wait for renewal?
Yeah. So be sure that you're asking those kinds of questions too if you're trying to save money up front and find out when it can and can't be added, that sort of thing.
Okay. Well, ladies, thank you very much for the information. We certainly appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks again for having us.
We'll be back in just a moment. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
If you're running ultra-low sulfur diesel in your vehicle, make sure you are prepared and protected all winter long with Howes Diesel Treat, the #1 anti-gel product in North America from the 100-plus-year trusted brand Howes Products.
Truckdown.com. Whenever you have a breakdown, you need Truckdown.com. 24/7 access to 40,000 verified heavy-duty repair vendors nationwide. Owner-operators need roadside speed, truckdown.com.
Firestone tires are for more of everything, with more durability for more miles and more confidence in your fleet. Firestone's tested tires help fleets save with value where it matters most. Learn more at bridgestonenationalfleet.com/4moremiles.
Since you started, what you've loved about trucking is the freedom. Heading out on your favorite route, a good driving song, and thinking about truck insurance. Well, maybe not that last one. That's why we're here. At OOIDA, we have a full range of truck insurance products, expert advice, and great customer service, helping you get the right coverage for your operation. Go to OOIDA.com, because your job is to drive. Our job is to help with everything else.
Landline Now, welcome back. If you're hauling freight and running your own business, you need to keep track of some basic facts and figures that can determine whether you succeed or fail. And that includes finding the freight and how much money you can make hauling it. Today, Landline Now's Ashley Blackford will bring us some of that information and get some insight as to why things are happening with the folks from Truckstop.com. Here's Ashley now with a report.
Thanks, Mark, and hello to Brent Hutto with Truckstop. How are you doing today, Brent?
Well, you know, Ashley, I'm doing super fantastic. As a good buddy of mine used to say, I always like the way to express things that way. I'm in the trucking industry, and we help American citizens enjoy their lives because truckers bring the goods every single day, and I like being a part of that. I'm in Cleveland at the National Motor Freight Transportation Association Cyber Conference, and so it's good to hear folks that are very focused on helping solve this problem about cargo theft and things in the market, and about how everybody needs to work together and make those connections to do that. So excited to be here and watch and listen, but I'm also super excited to be on the phone to you to talk to the truckers today.
Nice. Let's start off by taking a look at current market conditions, and I always love how you have a song that relates to where we're at. Although I will admit, I'm not sure you've had a song on here yet that I'm familiar with. I had to Google this one again today. But one of these days, I know, it must be a generational thing, maybe. I don't know. One of these days.
Yeah, maybe. I tell you what, I like me some Brad Paisley. Got a song by Brad Paisley, old goody country guy on there, and even though he's a little bit more modern than some of them, but I just put Welcome to the Future because the marketplace is beginning to build strength, which means pricing will increase and things will get better for the owner-operator, and because it's going to get better for the overall industry. Now, look, not crazy better, but better. And so as in trucking, we're a necessary industry for our country, and so we protect our country. We help our country. We help every part of it. So it's great to be in it, but it's better when the rates are a little bit better, not depressed so much.
What are some of the top regions and lanes from last week?
Yeah. Well, let me go back because I got kind of ahead of myself. So overall in the market, the pricing and everything kind of bumped up the last couple of weeks, and it's holding good. So the overall, remember when I say this, and I say this every time, Ash, let's make sure that the price you see on a load board or the price you see out there is the beginning price. All right, negotiate that price up with your service, with your excellence, with your dependability and predictability. If you're an owner operator in the marketplace looking at freight, so freight remained at $229, which is pretty good when you consider where we are overall. It needs to be higher. It should be 10 or 15 cents higher just in general. As the market continues to gain strength, and it will be. And so that's why 2025 is a little bit more, I'm a little more optimistic about that. But van freight's at $1.98. That's like I said, that's with fuel. And so flatbed is at $2.33, which is it's up over from January 1st, and then refrigerated was at $2.39. And those are just the posted prices. But the good thing is the outbound tender reject index, which is the contract freight marketplace, has been at 5%. The rejections, in other words, the freight that's being renegotiated by those big carriers out there, it's been at 5%, and that's good because when it's at 5% or more freight comes in the spot market and rates come up. And you talked about some of the lanes and stuff that were available for the marketplace. So when you look at this, there's some great reasons. One of the things overall, load availability is up year over year about 20%, which is when there's more freight, there's better rates. Rates in general have not followed along, even though there's more freight. But if freight in general, year over year, is up about 2%, which is good. That's meaningful. That's profitability for the carriers out there. And then when you look at some of the regions and stuff out there, here's one thing I'll say is that when I look at one of the specific markets, it's up tremendously. I look at the flatbed marketplace, which has just been it's just bananas higher than it was year over year. We're talking about in West Coast, it was up 11% a year over year. Mountain Central 36%, South Central 27%, Midwest 10%, Southeast 100% higher. And this is the load availability. So my point is, where there's more freight, there's opportunity. And some of the areas that are of interest, you still look at the same thing. We've been saying this for like the biggest while. The biggest increases seem to be anywhere inside and outside, into and out of Texas, like Phoenix to Houston, big increases. There's also lots of freight coming out of Phoenix right now. Kind of the West Coast, it's probably kind of a stocking place for California freight before it goes to where it needs to go to the United States. And that's on dry van. On flatbed, you're looking in some of the areas, Houston, Tacoma, Washington, obviously that's a big, Birmingham, Alabama, where I grew up, doing well. And then some of the areas looking at Houston again for refrigerated, Houston, Atlanta. So you get kind of a southeast push. But in general, go look. There's great rates. There's great freight out there that can be moved at a better rate.
All right. What are some important industry points owner-operators should be aware of?
Yeah. That's what you kind of want to know. Hey, what's the secret sauce out there? I discovered this back during the pandemic, where the outbound tender reject index, which is as I mentioned just a few minutes ago, this is the contract freight that's been rejected at the price that it was negotiated at by the bigger carrier with the manufacturer, the shipper company, and they've rejected the price they negotiated at. So some of that freight moves in the spot market, especially when the rejections are above 5% or at 5% or above. So because you saw that during the pandemic, it got up to over 25% of the freight in the contract marketplace was being renegotiated. So that's why we got all this freight into the spot market. So you're seeing, here's why I say this, the outbound tender rate index percentage of rejections has been at 5% all of October. Now, it hasn't been 1 week, it hasn't been 2 weeks. It's moving into its fourth week of it, or almost finishing. It's moving into its fifth week of it. That's a good thing. That means we're building strength. Here's what I want every trucker to take away from this: the marketplace is building strength. We've had rates in the spot market for the 15th straight week in a row over what they were last year at the same time. You've got contract freight, the amount that's being renegotiated coming into the spot market. It's almost 2 points or 40% above what it was last year at this time, the rejections. So all these are good indicators. The directional, what's the direction of the market? The direction of the market is better pricing for owner-operators and better prices for the larger carriers too, because the contract marketplace that we're coming up for all the renegotiation bids. So that's kind of where things are. That's why I just say there's momentum in the marketplace. There's better times around the corner, and that's why I use the Brad Paisley song, Welcome to the Future, because it was like, hey, the future's coming. It's not going to be as difficult as it was in our previous, just right behind us, but it's going to be better going forward. But it'll take time, so just keep watching the rates and the loads out there and negotiate the best you can.
All right. We got about a minute and a half left. I'm curious your thoughts on diesel. They're up 2 cents. It's the fifth increase in 6 weeks. How is that impacting truck drivers?
Well, what's interesting, I saw that some on the diesel. We track it as well. We've got it actually down 1 penny, that's interesting. I think it depends on where you're kind of buying it. Here's the thing I say to owner-operators in the spot market. And this is what you need to know as an owner-operator. This is something I promise you need to know, because it's not included in the contract that you're negotiating. Right? So if you're in the spot market, whether you're dealing directly with a broker or whether you're dealing directly with a shipper, it's not considered in there if you're a spot market carrier. It is if you're a larger carrier, you have 1,000 trucks, it's built into your contract because you build it in your contract, but it's not built into the contracts in the spot market, is the fluctuation of the cost of diesel. If you will negotiate, if you know what the cost of fuel is, and if you negotiate, hey, it went up 5 cents. I need your base price is $2.30, and the marketplace says it should be $2.40, but I need $2.45 because fuel went up. Then you're not getting punished for that increase of fuel cost. But you need to know what the market rates for fuel are every week, not last month, not 6 months ago. You know it every week because it's a supply and demand marketplace too, and it changes every day. So this fuel thing is important, but if you'll talk to your providers of freight or your providers of your loads for your trucks, they know this too. It's just not commonly included actually into the spot market, but you can get it in there because it exists in the other part of the marketplace. So learn to negotiate fuel every single time within every single contract that you have in the spot market, and I guarantee you fuel won't be as much of a punishment to you no matter what price you buy it at.
All right. Good advice. Brent, thank you so much.
Yeah, man. always my pleasure to help OOIDA help the truckers out there. We're happy to be a part of what's going on.
All right. That was Brent Hutto with Truckstop. Mark, back to you.
Thanks, Ashley. That's our program for today. Thank you for joining us. I'm Mark Rettig, and this is Landline Now.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
I'm a dad,
a son,
a husband,
wife.
I'm a writer,
photographer.
I farm.
I'm a veteran.
I love old cars, fishing,
my kids,
chrome,
and I am
a professional truck driver.
And together we are OOIDA.
OOIDA was founded by truckers to stand up and speak on behalf of truckers. We've done that by combining the individual voices of our members into a single, powerful voice. Protecting your interests, defending your rights.
Join us!
Make your voice heard. Join OOIDA, the Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association. Call 1-800-444-5791 or visit OOIDA.com.